How are viruses able to trick us into working against ourselves? That's what we'll be talking about in this module. So this information comes from chapter 17 of our textbook. And in this module, the learning outcomes are for learners to be able to define the characteristics of a virus, recognize the unique designation of a virus as a non-living biological entity, describe the ways in which viruses demonstrate evolution, and list the features of the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19. And so there will be a total of 3 lecture videos for this module. Those are viruses alive, evolution in action, and COVID-19 variants of concern. In the first module, we discussed the characteristics of life. And those are order, regulation and homeostasis, growth and development, energy processing, response or sensitivity to stimuli, reproduction, and adaptation. While viruses have many of these characteristics, they are not able to accomplish all of these steps without making use of a cell, and some they don't do at all. They do not grow or develop. Instead, they are assembled, fully formed, by the cell that they have infected. So, are they alive? Viruses are not considered to be alive. As I had mentioned, they also do not grow or reproduce, but instead are assembled in their mature state by infected cells. So how do viruses work? Well, computer viruses are pieces of software or programming which cause a computer to behave in an unintended or malicious way. Biological viruses are very similar. What biological viruses do is that they take over the machinery of a cell. They reprogram it, and they cause that cell to make more viruses. So what types of viruses are there? Well, viruses can be differentiated by the type of genetic material that they have, either DNA or RNA. Now this is interesting in that all cells have both DNA and RNA, but a virus is only going to be one or the other. It will be introduced to the cell either as DNA or as RNA. Another way that we can differentiate viruses is whether they have an outer envelope or not. All viruses are composed of genetic material and protein, and some will have an additional external envelope made of lipid materials, and others do not. What types of organisms do viruses attack? Well, there are different types of viruses that infect bacteria, archaea, protists, plants, fungi, and animals. So that means all types of life that we know of, all the different cell types, have different types of viruses that infect them. Now, there is no one type of virus that infects all the different types of organisms, but each organism has viruses that are specific towards that organism type. So what is it that viruses do? Well, the main goal of a virus is to copy itself. The copying of the virus allows the copies to infect other cells. And these other cells will either be in the same organism or in a different one. Those traits that a virus has, which allows the virus to spread most, are those that are being selected for. So viruses often will become more efficient and better able to spread within populations due to evolution and natural selection. Now, a virus cannot reproduce on its own. If you have a collection of viruses in a little, say, test tube or sample jar, and you leave it on a shelf, it will not do anything. They cannot process energy, they cannot reproduce, they cannot evolve, they cannot change on their own. Viruses must be within a cell for that replication and that evolution and change to occur. It requires the machinery within a cell for that virus to reproduce. And as I had mentioned, they aren't really growing and developing, they're instead just being assembled in their mature form. For a virus to get into a cell, it must bind to a receptor on the cell surface. This goes back to those discussion of antigens, or these surface signature molecules that are on cells. Viruses use those to enter cells. The surface molecules that a virus can make use of are very specific. It's like a specialized entryway. And so in that way, only certain types of cells can be infected by any given virus. A virus also needs certain enzymes and materials within the cell in order to take it over. So not every cell is a suitable host for replicating a virus. When it comes to the steps to viral infection, the first thing the virus must do is attach to the cell it wants to infect. Then it needs to pass through the membrane of that cell to get its genetic material into the cell. So that is the injecting of the viral genome. Once the genetic material of the virus has entered the cell, those instructions start reprogramming the ribosomes and other structures within the cell to manufacture viral proteins and to make more copies of that viral genetic material. The cell then assembles new viruses. And then finally, those new viruses have to be released from the infected cell so that they in turn can go and infect other cells. So we have our attachment of the virus to receptors on the surface of the target cell. That viral particle is brought in, and the viral genome is released into the cytoplasm. Those viral instructions start causing ribosomes to make new viral proteins and new viral materials, in addition to additional copies of the genetic material of the virus. New viruses are assembled, and those viruses are released from the infected cell. Even though viruses aren't alive, we'll see that they are able to evolve in our next video.